Hi everyone. It's been a while and I had a really nice summer break. It's been, that kind of time and season where you start to realize that sometimes you just have to say to yourself, you have to do you. So definitely start to get back into that. Post pandemic taught me a lot. And so for our conversation today, we are going to be talking about when the data that you see is not the data you were expecting. That's coming from my article. I know that I had talked about Labor Day as well, but you know what? Let's just go with, if you are feeling like you have to wear white in the spring and summer and not in the fall and winter, that's up to you. But other than that, there's really nothing for me to talk about with the Labor Day other than the article that I wrote to start off this year. Going back to when the data that you see is not the data that you were expecting, this has a lot to do with a teacher, and we can always tie it into parenting, right? When what you're expecting is not truly what you really had in mind, because in your heart you're always thinking to yourself, well, my goodness, these are all the things that I was seeing in my child, or for a teacher, things that I was seeing for my students and all their growth, and you're celebrating everything. And yet what others are seeing is not what your heart sees, or that you have really instilled in the spirit of the child and letting them know that they're doing amazing in their growth. And it's unfortunate because sometimes when we are celebrating certain milestones that have been reached, others are not celebrating with you, only because they don't understand all that hard work. I had students coming from the post-pandemic that severely were already behind previously before the pandemic, and then so of course they fell back even more. And yet I didn't look at that as an excuse. I didn't say to myself, well, you know what, you can just do whatever you want to do because your students are not going to be learning that much from you anyhow. When you care as a teacher, and again, I always tie this into as a parent, your heart is in the right place, and you have this sense of, what I want to say, a curse, and hopefully that doesn't sound like it's negative, but really truly saying to yourself, I can't help but care, and it is in me to just really keep thinking deeply about this person, this child, this student. And it's just something that you can't let go. And, no matter what, sometimes the most challenging ones are the ones who challenge you back and really making it seem like they are not able to grow. And then the more determined you are to show them, absolutely, you have every ability. And so here I was last year at the end of the year, I'm over here like high-fiving students, giving them fist pumps, and we're all excited about their growth. And that's all I remember. And I remember calling my husband and wanting to celebrate the end of the year, that we finish strong. And all of a sudden, coming back from the summer break, here I am thinking, okay, didn't think anything about day to day, but that's the day for you who may not be familiar with day to day, is when you gather together, you look at the data, this raw data in front of you, and you look to see really truly what the raw score is of all the students who met the standards. We're a standards-based state, and so you're looking at it and you're taking it for what it is. And in my mind, didn't think anything of it, as I never really truly care about the scores every year. Honestly, for me, it's more of, I think about, okay, how much have they grown? I thought that until I actually saw my score this year. And although I share the score with another teacher, you don't think about the other teacher. You own it to yourself. You're just, you don't sit here and go, oh, that's got to be her scores. It's your score collectively. And so when I looked at my data score, it was very, humbling, heart-wrenching, just everything that you can imagine when you are shocked by what you're looking at, because it wasn't what you anticipated. You have to remember again that I had in my mind was still celebrating all the students that had grown so much in just 1 year. And we're talking about some of them went from, just growing from 1 year to another year. And then there were those that were growing from 1 year to like 2 more years. And it's just those amazing feeling, and to see the kids smile and they're all just totally ecstatic about their growth, and seeing that yes, you can. And if you could do 2 to 3 years this year, imagine how much you're going to grow next year if you just keep on with that attitude and that work ethic. And so those were things that we were all just in full joy with. And so as I see this data in front of me, I'm like sitting there in silence, and I totally isolate myself. I'm self-reflective. I'm looking at this raw data, and I'm like, is there a misprint here? Is there something that, you weren't telling me? Because this is not what I remember. Because in my heart, I want to say that about 90% of my students grew. And I was looking at it from that perspective. And indeed, what I want to look back to, I'm still convinced that even if I don't have to have it in finite number of percentage of the students that did, they definitely, when I look at, if I say 90%, that's what my heart remembered, and so here I am thinking, okay, it can't be that low. There's just no way. And yet I had to take it for what it was, and just sat there and stared at it. And I knew that the entire room started thinking, okay, they're looking at it as well, and it is what it is. And I just went home feeling so just beaten down, and without anyone knowing, because one of the things that I have to understand about myself is, even though I may not show it on the outside, I tend to already become this person that's hard on myself, and the hardest on myself. And I know many of us can relate to that, where you're looking at it and you're thinking to your, just like, gosh, this is not something that I can just let go. And you start to own it all to yourself, and that 100%, you just inside just heavy and beaten down on yourself, like, what could you have done different? And so of course, coming home, it was really nice. It just so happened that it was one of those days where our children had practice, and my husband and I could just walk around. We're walkers, although my husband can outwalk me, but it was nice to have someone there. You have to have someone that tells it like it is. And after 30 years, being together, I trained myself to take it in and know that, as my husband had said many, many times to me, until I started to take it in my heart, that he doesn't say things to try and hurt me. He's just trying to help me. But what I really, he's also gotten better on how to deliver his message. So it was really nice for it to come from him, where he had to remind me that it doesn't matter. And this basically was the conclusion of it, is that it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's how those students felt. It's how I felt, and how we ended our year. And I do remember at the end of the year, as always, as when I told him, hey, we only have a few more weeks together, and then you guys graduate on to your next year. And I always hear the silence. And when you know that you've made a difference in a child's life, you're not going to always impact all. In fact, maybe some are silently saying, yay, we're going to get to go on to a different teacher. And you can't take that personal. And yet you will always have students that say, are you going to be our teacher next year? Is there going to be a chance? And that's when you know what, you touched someone's heart in this room. And then you say that in every class that passed through and passed by, and you can feel this solemn silence where they know that the reality is, yes, we will move on, they will graduate, and we will have new students. And it's at the end of it, I really had to chew on that data and just really take it in and say, own it. It's what it is. They really did not do as well as you thought, because even though they've grown so much, if your students have not passed the standards, I know my own children used to get so excited about passing standards, and it became this positive competitiveness, and within within each other, they're all amazing. But at the same time, it was my silent joy to know that, hey, this desire to do more and be more is instilled in my home, and that's what I'd always try to instill in my classroom. And so when I came to really the reality that, and had to take it in and accept it, that although I was celebrating students' growth, it will not always show in the eyes of others. And I had to just suck it up and just make sure that I understood that in my heart, and I planted it there, and I accepted it. I owned it, and I said, this should not impact how I'm going to be coming into my new year. It's a new year, and I will continue to do what I always do, and that's just the best I can. And so for me, it really helped me to come in to this new year with that, and definitely thank my husband for reminding me that it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, because now when I see those students from my past and they come by my classroom and they try it, and just still to this day they're waving as I'm teaching other students, they're waving by my window, or they come by and greet me, or they try to come in pretending that they're still my students, and I say student forever, but you've graduated. It's amazing to know that you have made an impact, and it's not always going to be the score. It is not always going to be what other teachers see or don't see, and that's okay. And so that is how I am concluding today. And we just do what we do. And, in really understanding that it's in here that matters, and it's okay if no one else sees it. You know it, and whoever it was meant for will see it and remember it. Hopefully for life, in the most positive impact. In the words of my mother, God bless us all. It's great to get started again. And hopefully, like my new background, I started painting again. And, one of my first, again, in a long time. And so you'll start to see some, because this is what I do just to get kind of my mind going in all different directions, as many of you, I'm sure, can relate to. And that's it. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.